Internet Use Violations, Threats Over the World Wide Web, case study by Courtney Reeves for Education Law, Spring 2013. The problem I noticed about this case was first the facts that I need to know. Ms. Walker is a new teacher who is intent on establishing a structured classroom. She has a high focus on academics, and due to the academic stress, her classrooms are experiencing a high level of stress. She's very rigorous in her instruction, and she expects a lot that these students are not able to keep up on their other studies. It did note that Mrs. Walker has several students who are up for valedictorian and other high honors, and due to her class and workload, parents and students are struggling with this and knowing that they may be not at that A status that they need for her class and for their GPA. Dr. Forbes is the principal at this school. He sought out Miss Walker when she was into her first year of teaching. He looked at her past experiences. She was in school, then got her master's, and had some also previous work experiences that were intriguing to him. He has worked with Ms. Walker on techniques to help reduce stress and increase positive interactions with students. He has noticed from her conversations with him and from parent and student feedback that this has become an issue. He did mention that Mrs. Walker has not implemented these strategies at this point. The main problem from this study is during her second year of teaching in the fall, Ms. Walker received over the weekend a disturbing email. The email linked her to a website that had very inappropriate comments and a note saying, "What can we do to get rid of Mrs. Walker?" Ms. Walker took this as they wanted her to die or somebody was out to kill her. She did phone the principal directly, notified him, and she took precautions, staying with her family and getting out of her house. Mr. Walker did let her know that he was concerned as well and that he would deal with it the next school day. The case ends after the two talked on the phone and sorted out that they would look at the case the next day of the internet and the website and talk with students in the school. There's still questions that I have knowing that we do not hear the end results. First, was this website student created, or is it like a website such as rateyourteacher.com or Rate Your Professor? Number two, have the parents had an opportunity to conference with Mrs. Walker and voice their concerns? It did know that he was aware of these, but it did not lead into if this was from Mrs. Walker letting him know or if he has been receiving negative parent feedback. And then, were there any disciplinary matters taken by the principal after Mrs. Walker failed to follow through with her strategies that he had given her? A plan of action and strategies. First, I'd want to sit down with the individuals in the class. To do this, I would make sure each person was on their own and wanted to get their feedback on Mrs. Walker and how they know about this website. Second, I'd ask for parents to come directly to me to voice their concerns. I would encourage them to follow up with the teacher and then with myself if there are any further concerns. A strategy to implement this would be through email or parent calls, as well as coming into my office. From the background knowledge, these parents have very affluent jobs as far as doctors, lawyers, in finance. So I do know their time is precious. So this would help alleviate them having to come into the school. They could do it through email or through the phone. I would sit down with Mrs. Walker about the above actions and strategies and wanting to make sure those have been implemented. I'd go over with her the feedback I got from parents and students, and I would inform her again of our expectations of our staff. Just like she has high expectations for students, I do as well for our staff and how they are addressing our students and their classroom management. I would also inform her that issues need to be dealt with in a timely manner. Category 3 is to resolve issues based on promoting the success of all students. My end goal would be to have Ms. Walker stay in the classroom with her students. My goal is to promote positive teaching strategies within Mrs. Walker's teaching. I would help monitor this through walkthroughs and student, parent, and teacher communication. This will help promote the continuous change for positive classroom management techniques and for the success of all students. How does this promote the success of all students? First, keeping a watch over Mrs. Walker's teaching will provide me that she is following through and making sure the students are not feeling the stress that they were and that they are being successful in their schoolwork. The walkthroughs will also keep me visible to the students and parents, reassuring them that I am taking an active interest in their well-being and that they are being successful. It will also let them know that I do care and that their voices of concern are being heard. If I take an interest in Ms. Walker's stay, it'll also give me other areas I could help her with her instruction and using positive interventions to help her with her management style, so working hand in hand with Ms. Walker. Reflection. I think Ms. Walker is a dedicated teacher that wants to push her students to the highest standards of success. However, I feel that she does not have the sight of the typical home family responsibilities. She is a single lady who does not have to answer to anyone in her personal life. I believe this can cause a gap from home to school and leads to misunderstandings amongst her students and how her expectations are not realistic. She has herself to worry about and does not have the other engagements that happen in a family environment, and that could be part of the gap in her struggle with the students, their busy lives, and her high expectations. I do value Ms. Walker's enthusiasm for her student success. However, I think she needs to be more open-minded in her classroom management approach. Still open up for further investigation or discussion. The matter of the website still needs to be resolved. The student, or if it was multiple students, do need to be held accountable for their actions through apology or community service within the school. Needing to know the next steps with Mrs. Walker if she does not decide to change her ways and does not improve her management style. And then for myself as the principal, do I need to do a better job at keeping up on classroom observations and looking at parents' feedback? So a self-reflection for the administrator as well. Category 5, we're looking at Standard 5 and the building level administrator, making sure as an educational leader we are promoting success of all with integrity, fairness, and in an ethical manner. For the first component, this deals with the individual conferencing with students. That keeps Mrs. Walker with a fairness and a sense of integrity. This would be a better way to find out details without having her sit directly with those students. It also is a confidentiality protection for Mrs. Walker and the families involved. As the administrator, going in with an open mind, not blaming any parties and hearing all the facts first, is also a sense of integrity and making sure we're being ethical to all. Ethically as an administrator is also my obligation to be visible. That's one of my duties in making sure I'm providing those observations and seeing what's happening in the situation. Component 2, to keep Mrs. Walker's dignity, I evaluated the situation using a one-on-one approach. This keeps her away from having other students make up comments or bring comments to the discussion with Ms. Walker there. It is a private forum. I wanted all parties to give feedback and have everyone involved, and I need to make sure I'm holding Mrs. Walker accountable and accountable like any other staff member. It's only fair to be as visible in her room as others and to give her guidance for her to self-reflect and help with struggling teachers. Component 3, following my rights as the administrator to promote the student success and to make changes as needed. Professionally, I do not need to be caught up in the drama, but rather hear the facts and address them as needed. and also making sure I'm promoting a high level of success, not only with my students, but my teachers, and that will help with the rigor instruction, but also that positive support system. And that concludes the case study.